Hey, this is Will. I'm staring at the email again. I don't want to, but my eyes keep dragging me there like it's some cursed artifact. It's short, only a few lines, but those words are a wrecking ball. The kind that tears through 22 years of marriage, 3 sons, and a life I thought was solid. Your wife had an affair with my fiancé, it says. The woman's name means nothing to me, but the details she offers are sharp enough to carve through any doubt I'm clinging to. Dates, locations, even coworkers' names, all lined up like a police report. I laugh at first, a dry, humorless sound that echoes in my empty office. It's absurd. Susan? My Susan? No way. We've been married for over 2 decades. She's the steady anchor in our storm, the one who never faltered. Sure, we've had our spats, what couple hasn't, but infidelity. It's ridiculous. And yet, the seed is planted. I sit there, jaw clenched, scrolling through the email again, cross-referencing the dates in my head. One jumps out immediately, the conference trip I took 4 years ago. I remember it clearly because I'd spent months planning it, securing the right speaker slots, coordinating the restaurant staff to run things smoothly while I was gone. I'd even apologized to Susan for being away, told her I'd make it up to her when I got back. Turns out, she'd already made plans of her own. The affair wasn't a fleeting mistake, it was premeditated. That stings the most, knowing she'd mapped it out while I was busy building a future for all of us. And the intern? A 23-year-old kid, barely older than our youngest son. My stomach twists every time I think about it. The woman's fiancé had confessed everything to her, and she, in turn, decided I deserved to know. I can't decide if I want to thank her or curse her. Ignorance, as they say, might have been bliss. But now there's no going back. For days I try to brush it off, shove it into the farthest corner of my mind. But the details she provided won't let me. They fit too neatly into the puzzle. The night Susan claimed she was out with friends. The sudden, inexplicable tension when I returned home from the conference. Even the way she started talking about boundaries in our relationship around that time, which I dismissed as some self-help phase. I combed through my own memories, looking for holes, inconsistencies, cracks in the facade I'd been living in. And slowly, like a photograph developing in a darkroom, the truth comes into focus. Susan and I met when we were young, too young to grasp what forever really meant. But we'd grown together, or so I thought. We built a family, a good one. Adam, Brian, and Charlie are my pride. I've poured everything into them, taught them to work hard, stay honest, and own their mistakes. And Susan was right there with me, my partner in everything. Or at least, I thought she was. I keep the email to myself, not ready to blow up the life we've built. I'm not even sure I believe it fully, not yet. So I dig. I start with the dates, the locations. I check old credit card statements, her calendar, even her social media. Each step feels like betrayal, but it's nothing compared to what I might uncover. And I do. It's all there, plain as day. Reservations at a hotel I didn't know about. A coworker's name that pops up too often in conversations I never noticed before. The pieces fall into place, each one a tiny hammer blow. By the time I'm done, there's no room for doubt. 4 years. She kept this buried for 4 years, walking through our home like nothing happened. Smiling, laughing, planning birthday parties, and family vacations. I wonder how many times I kissed her goodnight while she was thinking about him. I sit in the quiet of my office, the email open on the screen, my hands gripping the edge of the desk like it might hold me steady. The words in my head are relentless. She lied. She planned it. She got away with it. I close the email, lean back in my chair, and let the weight of it all settle in. The life I thought I had? It's gone. And Susan? She's not who I thought she was. 4 years. She hid it for 4 years. That thought keeps following me, no matter how hard I push it away. It's with me in the mornings, when the gym is quiet except for the hum of treadmills and the rhythmic clank of weights. It's with me at work, as I smile at employees and sign invoices, pretending everything is fine. And it's with me at night, in the house that doesn't feel like home anymore. Susan doesn't know I've figured it out. She doesn't see how carefully I'm peeling away the pieces of our life, making plans she won't be a part of. To her, I'm still the same husband I've always been, steady, dependable, predictable. But I'm not. Not anymore. I moved all my important documents, bank statements, business records, anything she might try to touch, into a safe at my office. Our finances have always been separate, and for the first time, I'm grateful for that arrangement. It means I can untangle myself from her without risking what I've built. I started seeing a lawyer 2 weeks ago, slipping out on lunch breaks to talk strategy and numbers. The conversations feel surreal. Divorce was never something I thought I'd have to plan for. But here I am, drawing up battle lines and splitting assets in my head. At home, I'm a ghost. I wake up early, leave for the gym before anyone stirs, and come back late blaming work. Susan doesn't question it. If anything, she seems relieved. She's been planning some kind of anniversary trip for us, casually mentioning ideas over dinner like everything's perfect. Maybe we could do Italy this time, she says one evening, her voice light. Remember how much we loved Florence? I nod, keeping my face blank. She's good at this, acting like nothing's wrong. But I can see the cracks now. The way her eyes dart to me when she thinks I'm not looking. The way her laugh sounds forced when she's around the boys. She's not as composed as she used to be. I don't trust myself to be around her for long. The anger is too close to the surface. It's a low hum under my skin, constant and relentless. Not just at her, but at everything. At the family we've built, now stained by her choices. At the nights I spent working late to give us the life she wanted, while I stop the thought before it can finish. The boys are the hardest part. Adam is out of the house, living on his own. Brian's in college, and Charlie's finishing high school. They don't know what's coming, and I can't bring myself to tell them yet. I've always been the rock, the steady hand they could rely on. How do I look them in the eye and admit I'm breaking apart? Some days, I'm tempted to confront her. To lay it all out, and watch her scramble for an explanation. But I don't. Not yet. Timing matters. If I'm going to do this, it has to be clean. No loose ends, no room for manipulation. And Susan is good at manipulating. She's been that way for as long as I've known her, though I didn't see it at first. She has a way of twisting things, making you doubt yourself. If I confront her too soon, she'll find a way to turn the boys against me or play the victim. I can't let that happen. So I wait. In the meantime, I've made myself invisible. Our conversations are surface level at best, dinner plans, schedules, the occasional comment about the restaurant. I give her nothing to latch onto, no sign that I'm unraveling the life we've built together. I don't know how she does it, walking around like nothing's changed. She's still planning family outings, talking about the future, acting like the devoted wife. Sometimes I catch myself watching her, wondering how much of it is an act and how much is real. The house feels cold now, no matter how warm it is outside. Every corner holds a memory I can't escape. The kitchen, where we used to cook together. The living room, where we spent countless nights watching movies with the boys. Even our bedroom, once a sanctuary, now feels like a battlefield. I can't sleep there anymore. Most nights, I fall asleep on the couch, the TV flickering in the background. It's easier that way. Less time to think, less time to remember. The anger comes in waves. 1 minute, I'm fine, focused on the next steps. The next, it's like a storm breaking loose inside me. I'll grip the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turn white or slam the file cabinet shut with more force than necessary. But I don't let it show at home. Not yet. For now, I keep moving forward, one step at a time. Gathering documents, meeting with the lawyer, planning my escape. It's a slow, methodical process, but it's the only way to protect myself, and the boys. Susan doesn't see it coming. And when she does, it'll be too late. Charlie was the one who saw it. He was only 14 at the time, still a kid, really. I keep replaying what that must have been like for him, walking into the house and finding his mother tangled up with some guy barely older than Adam. Our home, the place that was supposed to be safe, turned into something ugly in an instant. He didn't tell me then. He didn't tell anyone for a while. Susan convinced him it was nothing, said it was a mistake, a misunderstanding. She probably used that soft, reassuring tone she's so good at, the one that makes you want to believe her. And Charlie, being a kid, believed her. Or at least, he wanted to. It wasn't until a year later, when he finally broke down and told his brothers, that the truth started to come out. I can only imagine the conversation they had, Charlie, nervous and shaky, spilling what he'd seen, and Adam, always the protector, immediately stepping into action. Brian, caught in the middle, trying to make sense of it all. Adam confronted Susan first. He's always been direct, no hesitation when it comes to standing up for what's right. I can picture it clearly, him standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, his voice steady but sharp as he demanded answers. "You need to tell Dad," he must have said. "You owe him that much." But Susan didn't tell me. She made excuses, promised she would, and then found ways to avoid it. She delayed and delayed, probably hoping the whole thing would blow over. Maybe she thought the boys would let it go, that they wouldn't push. But they did push. And the more they pushed, the more cracks started to show. When I first learned the truth, it wasn't from my sons. It was from that anonymous message, the one that landed in my inbox like a bomb. At first, I thought it was a cruel joke. But the details were too specific to ignore. Dates, locations, names, it was all there. The betrayal hit me like a freight train, but the second wave of pain came when I realized my sons had known. They'd been carrying this secret, trying to protect me, trying to hold the family together. Charlie was the hardest to face. He avoided me at first, retreating to his room or leaving the house whenever I was around. When I finally cornered him, he looked like he was ready to bolt. "Charlie," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my chest was tight. "We need to talk." He hesitated, eyes darting toward the door. But eventually he sat down. I didn't ask him why he hadn't told me. I already knew. He was a kid, put in an impossible position. Instead, I asked him to tell me everything. It poured out of him like water breaking through a dam. How he'd seen them in the living room. How Susan had begged him to stay quiet. How he tried to forget it ever happened but couldn't. "I didn't want to hurt you, Dad," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Hearing him say that nearly broke me. I wanted to tell him it wasn't his fault, that he hadn't done anything wrong. But the words felt hollow. How do you reassure your child when you're barely holding it together yourself? Adam and Brian came next. We had a group call, the three of them on one side, me on the other. Adam did most of the talking, his voice tight with frustration. He told me about the confrontation with Susan, about how she'd promised to tell me but never did. "She kept saying it wasn't the right time," Adam said, his anger barely contained. "But there's never going to be a right time for something like this." Brian chimed in, his tone softer but no less firm. "We didn't know what to do, Dad. We thought she'd come clean eventually." I listened, letting their words wash over me. There was anger, yes, but also pride. My sons, despite everything, had stuck together. They'd leaned on each other when the adults in their lives had let them down. Still, their silence stung. I couldn't help but wonder how long they would have kept it from me if that anonymous message hadn't forced it into the open. The hardest part is balancing the roles of father and husband. As a father, I understand their choices. They were kids trying to navigate an impossible situation. But as a husband, their silence feels like another betrayal, another layer to the wound Susan inflicted. The dynamic in the house is strained now. Charlie avoids Susan as much as he can, his once easygoing demeanor replaced by something quieter, more guarded. Adam is distant, his calls less frequent, his words clipped. Brian tries to play peacemaker, but even he is starting to crack under the weight of it all. I can't blame them. Susan's betrayal didn't just shatter my trust in her, it fractured the foundation of our family. And no matter how much I want to shield my sons from the fallout, I can't protect them from this. The only thing I can do is make sure they know I'm still here for them. That no matter what happens with Susan, they're not losing me too. But even as I tell myself that, I feel the anger simmering beneath the surface. Anger at Susan for putting us in this position. Anger at myself for not seeing it sooner. And yes, anger at my sons for keeping it from me, even though I know they thought they were doing the right thing. It's a tangled web, one I'm not sure we'll ever fully untangle. But for now, all I can do is take it one step at a time. And the next step is Susan. It starts with Charlie. I wait until Susan's out running errands, grocery shopping, or picking up some new houseplant. I don't bother asking anymore. When the door closes behind her, I call Charlie into the living room. He walks in slowly, head down, shoulders hunched. He knows. He's probably been waiting for this conversation since the moment I found out.
Sit down, Charlie, I say, keeping my voice calm, though my heart's racing. He sits, perched on the edge of the couch, as if ready to flee. For a moment, neither of us speaks. The clock ticks loudly in the silence. I know what happened, I say finally. I know what you saw. His head jerks up, eyes wide. Dad. I raise a hand to stop him. It's okay. I'm not angry with you. I just want to hear it from you, in your own words. Charlie exhales shakily and looks away, staring at the coffee table like it holds the answers. Slowly, he starts talking. It's mostly the same as what he told me before, but this time, there's more detail. How he came home early from a friend's house and saw Susan with the intern in the living room. How she panicked, begged him not to say anything, promised it was a mistake. I didn't know what to do, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to mess everything up. I nod, even though the words sting. I understand, Charlie. You were just a kid. You shouldn't have been put in that position. His eyes fill with tears, and he wipes at them angrily. I should have told you. I should have done something. You did what you thought was right at the time, I say, forcing the words out. But now, we're going to deal with it. Together. I stand, my hands trembling, and place a hand on his shoulder. Thank you for telling me. The next conversation is harder. A group call with all three boys, sitting in my office with the door shut while Susan putters around the kitchen, blissfully unaware. Adam doesn't hold back. He lays it all out, his voice brimming with frustration. She lied to us, Dad. Over and over. Every time we asked her to come clean, she had an excuse. It's not the right time. Your dad's stressed with work. Always something. Brian cuts in, his tone softer but no less firm. We wanted to tell you ourselves, but we didn't know how. We thought she'd eventually do the right thing. I let them talk, their words tumbling out in a mix of anger, guilt, and relief. When they're done, I speak. I don't blame you, I say. I know you were trying to protect me. But this family doesn't work if we're keeping secrets from each other. No more lies. Agreed? There's a pause before Adam responds. Agreed. Brian and Charlie echo him, their voices quieter but steady. The hardest conversation, of course, is with Susan. I wait until the boys are out of the house, Adam's back at his apartment, Brian's visiting friends, and Charlie's at school. She walks into the living room, humming under her breath, and stops short when she sees me sitting there. We need to talk, I say, my tone leaving no room for argument. Her smile falters. What's this about? I lean forward, resting my elbows on my knees. For years ago. While I was at that conference. You had an affair with the intern. The color drains from her face. She opens her mouth, closes it, then tries again. Will, it wasn't. Don't lie to me, I interrupt, my voice sharper than I intended. I know everything. The dates, the names, the places. I even know what Charlie saw. Her expression shifts from panic to something colder. So what now? You want to throw away 22 years of marriage over one mistake? Mistake? I echo, standing. You planned this, Susan. You waited until I was out of town, brought him into our home, and lied to our sons to cover it up. That's not a mistake. That's betrayal. Her jaw tightens. You think you're so perfect? Like you've never done anything wrong? This isn't about me, I snap. This is about you. And the fact that you broke every promise we made to each other. The argument spirals from there. She alternates between minimizing what happened, it was just a kiss, and lashing out. When she realizes neither tactic is working, she turns to threats. You'll regret this, she says, her voice low and venomous. You think the boys will stay on your side when I tell them what kind of father you've been? Her words bounce off me. She doesn't realize I've already had those conversations. The boys know the truth, and they've made their choice. By the end, her facade crumbles. She starts crying, but it doesn't move me. I've seen those tears before, used to manipulate and distract. This time, they mean nothing. I walk out, leaving her alone in the living room. The divorce papers are already drawn up, waiting for her signature. There's nothing left to say. Charlie moves in with me temporarily, his presence a small comfort in the chaos. The house is quieter now, the tension replaced by a heavy stillness. The boys are supportive, but the family feels fractured, like a puzzle missing too many pieces to ever be whole again. The legal process is straightforward, no alimony, thanks to Susan's job, and the business protected by our separate finances. The assets will be divided equally, but I've already accepted that. Money doesn't matter anymore. What matters is moving forward. But for now, I'm standing still, waiting for the dust to settle. Waiting to figure out what comes next.